100-mile-per-hour winds. A Spanish fleet loaded with treasure. A fateful night that changed the course of world history. 300 years ago, a fleet of 11 Spanish galleons set sail for Spain from Havana, Cuba, loaded with untold riches. Just days into their journey, the entire fleet sank off the coast of Florida from the fury of a massive hurricane.
This is a fairly large hurricane, possibly Category 5, and the fleet was doomed.
The loss of these 11 ships changed the course of world history.
They had no place to run to, they had no place to hide.
And those who survived were shipwrecked on barren beaches, fraught with danger and death.
The loss of the 1715 fleet generated the biggest treasure hunt in the world.
Untold riches still lie scattered along the ocean's floor, waiting to be discovered. Today, modern treasure hunters continue to survey the ocean depths, recovering artifacts and salvaging riches from this lost fleet.
There was a cannon out in this area.
Fulfilling a lifelong dream, Brent Brisben and his father acquired the exclusive salvaging rights to the 1715 Spanish fleet from the world-famous treasure hunter Mel Fisher.
We found some amazing artifacts. The bronze cannon full of gold coins, the gold pelican, silver sword handles, gold and silver coins. The list goes on and on.
Among the riches the treasure hunters have sought for centuries is the legendary dowry known as the Queen's Jewels.
Did the Queen Jewels really exist?
It's another unknown mystery about the 1715 fleet.
In today's money, that would be the equivalent of hundreds of millions of dollars.
It is frustrating. You can second guess yourself to death. It's a process that most people wouldn't endure.
Join Brent and the crew of the Capitana as they search for millions in lost gold and silver.
This is an incredibly dangerous business. People have died in pursuit of this treasure.
They'll encounter the harsh realities of this dangerous quest.
We had a great white shark right in the middle of our Corrigan's wreck site.
We lost a diver on my boat, and it was the single worst day of my life.
Come with us on a journey that will explore the history of one of the most famous shipwrecks.
Very much a 300-year-old detective story.
And witness the discovery that would change everything.
This presentation of the Lost Treasure Fleet of 1715 is brought to you by Mine Lab and Kellyco Metal Detectors, changing people's fortunes for over 60 years.
Maritime history is no stranger to stories and tales of shipwrecks. The ocean holds beneath her waves the stories of many lost ships and their passengers. Though there are more than 3 million recorded shipwrecks all over the world, finding one is more a test of patience than science or skill. But off the central east coast of Florida, a salvage operation has been searching for artifacts from one of the most expensive maritime disasters in known history.
My name is Brent Brisben, and my job is to find the lost treasure of the 1715 fleet. Never saw any reef or anything. It was all...
No reef out here either.
Nothing.
Brent and his father Bill are historic shipwreck salvers. Their current permits allow them to legally salvage the known shipwrecks that were lost at sea 300 years ago.
It's illegal to go out and search for these wreck sites unless you have the proper permitting. My company has both federal and state permits.
Brent's company, 1715 Fleet Queen's Jewels, is a massive operation consisting of 15 boats and roughly 50 crew members who tirelessly hunt treasure every day for 4 months each year.
We really try to approach this from an archaeological standpoint. You know, it's important to uncover every artifact that we can so that we can tell a bigger story about what life was like on these ships.
Of the 11 ships that sank off the east coast of Florida, only 6 have been salvaged. Those 5 lost ships may still hold hundreds of millions of dollars in silver, gold, and precious metals. The ultimate goal of Brent's crew is to find a new wreck site and unearth another chapter in the story of the lost 1715 Silver Plate fleet.
If one of the missing ships is found, it's going to be an archaeological bonanza because we're going to be able to study a lot more and learn a lot more about the makeup of the fleet.
An invaluable tool for identifying potential wreck sites is the magnetometer. Brent works with a company that has developed a method of flying a magnetometer from a helicopter.
We use that magnetometer to detect the iron, and that gives us an indication of where shipwreck artifacts may lie.
Here's the mag survey of Jensen Beach.
Today, Brent just received the results of his scan of a 2-mile stretch in Jensen Beach off Florida's east coast.
Man, there's a lot of targets all over the place out here.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got over 1,000 targets, and some of them look really interesting.
The ships that are remaining are truly a mystery. You know, these ships have been hidden for 300 years, and there's a reason they haven't been found.
You know, all these areas look promising, but this is what I want to start. I'm excited about this. I think this is where we need to go, and I have great hopes for that area.
Where we're headed?
We're heading up to the north end of the wrecks. We'll start with this scattered of targets up there.
It takes a determined and passionate crew to help Brent find the missing 1715 shipwrecks. Bill and Jonah are expert metal detectorists and have over 20 years of experience finding shipwrecked artifacts. Tony, the captain of the boat, is responsible for putting the boat on specific GPS coordinates that allow the crew to find their targets.
We're gonna drop in right down here. You know, you'll be able to tell right away from, you know, what's laying down there, I think, as to what kind of period it is, if it's modern or if it's shipwrecks.
I mean, we got to check all these areas right here. One of these is going to be a 1715 shipwreck.
Their permit will only allow them to explore 10 targets, and everything they find must be turned over to the state. But if a wreck is found, it could open up a new area of excavation for years to come.
We're going down there. We're going to take a detector down and see if we can just come across one of those scan hits we got the numbers on.
This spot may be the final resting place of one of the lost ships from the 1715 fleet, which journeyed along the coast of Florida on the ill-fated evening of July 30th, 1715. The mighty empire of Spain relied on royal galleons to return from the New World with hundreds of tons of treasure annually.
The reason the fleet did not sail earlier is you had the War of Succession, which started in 1701 and ended in 1714.
During the war, the English and Dutch hindered the treasure fleet's ability to cross the Atlantic. This caused Spain to incur a massive amount of debt.
The crown needed that money to fight the English and the Dutch. So they had to borrow money, and that money had to be repaid.
After the war ended with the Treaty of Utrecht, King Philip V felt comfortable enough to call his treasure fleet back home.
There was really a need for Philip V to give the order to bring back as much as could be brought back.
After 2 years of delays, the pressure to set sail may have forced the fleet to begin their journey in the midst of hurricane season. Having departed Havana, Cuba, and moving north along the coast of Florida, the 11 ships had no idea what Mother Nature had waiting for them. The crew of the Capitana is in uncharted treasure hunting territory, on a mission to find evidence of the whereabouts of 5 missing Spanish galleons that sank off Florida's east coast in 1715. Bill has located the crew's first target.
Diver up.
I found it.
Did you?
Nice.
That looks like a big huge man.
It is a mass ring.
I don't know, it looks more like it's from a barrel. It's got an angle on it, you know? I can see that it's pitched. I think it's definitely a barrel hoop of some kind. I don't know that it would have been from the shipwreck. You know, the archaeologist will have to determine that.
Any artifact, whether it be a piece of treasure or a piece of wreckage, gets tagged, cataloged, and the state is notified.
The state of Florida is entitled to up to 20% of the artifacts that we recover from each individual shipwreck. So they will come at the end of the year, they will take a look at everything we found, and then they put in a request for basically the rare, unique artifacts that add to their collection.
But with so many shipwrecks along the coast of Florida, could this be an artifact from one of the 5 lost ships? And if so, what other artifacts may be hidden from that ill-fated night 300 years ago?
People have tendency to focus on gold and silver, but the bulk of the treasure included blue and white Chinese export porcelain from the Far East, precious stones from the Far East, emeralds, pearls, silk, cacao, and the resulting chocolate was extremely expensive in Europe.
With so much treasure, the fleet chose the quickest route possible for their return to Spain.
If you were leaving from Havana Harbor and you wanted to go to Spain, the most obvious thing to do was to take a ride on the Gulf Stream. This is a strong ocean current that flows out of the Gulf of Mexico, through the Straits of Florida, and then up through the Bahama Channel, out towards Europe.
Casi Florida y las Bahamas, north a la Capitania Rebel, north a San Agustín y pasar de la Mer del Norte a las Islas Azores.
Sailing across the ocean from the New World was a very dangerous affair.
Just 7 days into their journey, the fleet was near present-day Cape Canaveral.
There have been studies that show during the early 18th century, hurricane activity was maybe 2 to 3 times more active than it is now.
On the morning of July 30th, 1715, the weather began to take a turn for the worse.
The overcast became heavier and heavier. They began to see small, what are called scud clouds, skirting overhead very rapidly. We had this ramping up of the winds, past gale force to whole gale force to hurricane force by nightfall.
St. Augustine was less than 130 miles away. If they could make it there was a chance they could outlast the storm.
One of the problems in the 18th century was that most sailors assumed that storms moved with the wind. If they encountered a northeast wind, they would assume that the storm was approaching them from the northeast, when in fact, the storm circulation meant that the storm was to their southeast, and they might make the wrong decision on which way to sail. Donovia thought he could outrun the hurricane. Unfortunately, it was overtaking him.
With a major hurricane barreling down on the 11 ships, any chance of surviving the storm at sea was left in the hands of fate. July 30th, 1715. The fleet was moving from the Bahama Channel, but slowly. This was the most difficult day of sailing yet. The normal trade winds the fleet needed to help push them through the channel have disappeared.
Normally, in this area in late July, you'd be experiencing the trade winds. They come from out of the southeast, and they give you a boost as you're sailing up the Bahama Channel. They're coming from behind on your ship. The problem with the 1715 fleet was they began encountering strong northeasterly winds, and that's because they had a hurricane circulation to their southeast.
With wind and waves turning against them, they had only one option.
They had to do a maneuver that's called tacking into the wind. What you end up doing is a zigzag course going up the channel. Now this is very slow and cumbersome. And when you change tack, when you go from this tack to that tack, it takes a lot of effort. The sailors have to go aloft and change the rigging around to get the sails in the right direction. If they'd had their trade winds behind them, they probably would have gone through the Bahama Channel in one day and avoided the storm. But the winds of the storm were against them.
These winds, so often a sailor's best friend, were quickly turning into their worst enemy. Night on July 30th. The winds are now approaching 100 miles per hour. The crew battened down the hatches in an attempt to keep the ship from taking on water.
Despite the battening down of the hatches, water was seeping inside, and they had to maintain the bilge pumps almost constantly to keep the ships from filling with water. It had to have been a fairly strong hurricane, possibly category 3, 4, or 5. And we also know that they experienced hurricane-force winds in St. Augustine, nearly 130 miles away. So this gives us the idea this is a fairly large hurricane and a very strong hurricane.
With each passing hour, the fate of the 11 ships was quickly becoming a horrifying reality. They had no place to run, no place to hide. During the height of the hurricane, it must have been hell on the decks of those ships. Most of their topsails had completely disintegrated, and they lost control of their ships. It's 2 a.m. With gusts of over 100 miles per hour, the ships are now at the mercy of the wind. They had one last trick to play. The captain ordered all deck cannons and heavy cargo thrown overboard to lighten the ship, allowing the ship to ride over reefs and rocks. This effort would get the ship closer to shore, giving passengers a fighting chance to survive.
They didn't stand a chance against a hurricane of this force and in such hostile territory.
The storm claimed all 11 ships. More than 1,000 souls perished. 300 years later, the effort to salvage valuable artifacts from the events of that tragic night continue.
The whole intent of going down to Jensen Beach is just to look for evidence of a shipwreck. Now, we've got these surveys that show us large masses of targets, but this is archaeology. So we don't want to start, right in the middle of it and disturb the main cultural pile. So we've got targets that are on the periphery of these main clusters of targets. And what we're looking for is just some indication that the shipwreck is there.
His first target provided promising results, but it's not definitive proof this is a 1715 wreck site. This next target will require a tried and true salvage technique, not high-tech equipment.
Okay, here it comes, Bill.
We use these blowers to excavate the sand.
Can you see the bottom, Bill? Is it just sand?
Yeah.
Basically, it's a prop wash diverter.
All right, Brent, I got the buoy up. Let's go ahead and start digging.
But we move all that sand out of the way, get down to the bedrock, and that's where these artifacts lie.
Once the sand has been moved, the divers have only a small amount of time to search the hole before the ocean's currents fill it back in.
There's no potential risk of doing any damage along the beach because it's just sand over bedrock.
Such simple yet necessary devices were first used over 50 years ago. The man who pioneered the hunt for the 1715 fleet was a construction contractor named Kip Wagner.
Kip Wagner is the one who really got the 1715 fleet adventure started.
In the 20th century, the idea of a sunken fleet of ships bearing treasure was just a myth, contradicted only by beachcombers who would occasionally find artifacts along the shore.
Like most myths, it had a basis in truth. There was some facts to it. It really was the beachcombers prior to Kip that had found Spanish silver coins and had found Spanish gold coins that got Kip's interest up and that moved things forward. Kip Wagner was definitely one of the most successful salvors that's ever lived. He was the right guy at the right time in the right place.
Having made major discoveries this way, Kip's path would soon cross with another pioneer who would become famous around the world for finding one of the largest treasures in recorded history. In the 1950s, the east coast of Florida was becoming a hotbed for treasure hunters. Kip Wagner's discovery of the 1715 fleet quickly gained the attention of the young dive shop owner who dreamed of finding lost treasure, Mel Fisher.
Mel had opened the second dive shop in the United States in Redondo Beach, California. He had taught thousands of people how to scuba dive.
An expert diver, Mel sold his business and moved his family to Florida to work with Kip.
Mel talked with the various people that wanted to come with him, and he put together 7 or 8 guys and said, look, we'll give it 1 year. We'll sell out all of our businesses, all of our homes, everything to find treasure.
Mel consistently sought new technology to help him find shipwrecks faster, but he was also looking for a way to see better while diving.
In May of 1964, Mel dug a hole with his newly invented mailboxes or blowers that diverted the prop wash towards the bottom and was 100 times more effective than the dredging techniques that Kip had been using.
The mailboxes were meant to push clear water from the top to the bottom, giving greater visibility to divers. But the result was better than imagined. The mailboxes uncovered years of sand and debris to reveal bedrock and sometimes more.
On that day in May, it blew the sand away, and Mel went down and the bottom was paved with gold doubloons. They found 1,200 gold coins in that one day. And working about 100 yards north of where Mel had made his big find, Kip found a spot, and he actually found 1,300 gold coins in one day. And those are the 2 biggest days of gold coins that have ever been found in Florida waters. Back then, worth many millions of dollars. Today, tens of millions of dollars.
In 2010, Brent Brisben purchased the exclusive salvaging rights from the Fisher family and has carried on the summer tradition ever since.
Every day we go out there is an adventure. You never know what the day is going to bring. You know, some days are difficult and they try your patience, but some days make it all worthwhile.
It's day 2 of Brent's exploration of a new area in search of one of the 5 missing ships from the 1715 fleet.
And I've put my heart and soul into this. We work 12, 14, 16-hour days on the water. So, it weighs on me at the end of the day when I put my head on the pillow. How are we going to keep going into the future?
Among the lessons Brent has learned is that everyone has a theory about where the missing shipwrecks may be.
Well, 2008, that old guy was talking about some cannons down here, which is probably about 15 feet of water.
Another one of your treasure hunting ghost stories?
No, actually, I snorkeled over them and saw them.
Really? And put eyes on them, huh?
Put eyes on them. They're two sitting out straight. And one
Cannons are an important signpost. They're indicative of a Spanish shipwreck.
But Jonah's story about these cannons doesn't match up with what's on Brent's map, and Brent only has 5 targets remaining from the state.
You actually put eyes on them? I think that'd be a worthwhile endeavor. Let's roll up there.
Yeah, we'd probably locate them.
Optimistic, Brent and his crew head north.
We're going to tow a diver behind our skiff so that he can just visually look in the water and see if anything's protruding from the bottom, the sand.
They're on a pile of rocks down there
They
or
are?
something. Yeah, they're sitting right on top of it.
So there's no way that they're buried. It's not like we've
No.
had them. When were you on them? 2 years ago?
No, either 08 or 09.
Oh, wow, that long ago?
Yeah. Well, they're still here. They've been here forever.
Currents and tides are always changing the ocean floor. Still, Brent is hopeful that Jonah can find the rumored cannons.
The technology is an amazing thing. It can help us a tremendous amount. It's not by any means foolproof. It really takes bodies in the water to get out there and investigate these targets.
I gotta really pay attention here. Very dangerous driving these guys behind the boat. The rope can get stuck in the propeller. They also look like bait for sharks.
Florida's warm waters and ample supply of bait make its shallow coastline an ideal habitat for sharks.
Earlier this spring, we had a great white shark named Catherine. We can track it on a website. It came down, turned, went right into the middle of the Sebastian Inlet, down the coast, right in the middle of our Corrigan's wreck site. Finally, it went a little offshore and then headed south.
Only a couple of years into Brent's salvage efforts of the 1715 fleet did he experience the hazards of diving for this treasure firsthand.
One of the worst days of my life was in 2013. One of my drivers passed while scuba diving. To think about one of your closest friends and employees, losing his life while in search of this treasure, it's a dangerous game. To actually experience something like that was the most horrific day of my life. Diving is inherently dangerous. You have a shallow water blackout or you bang your head on one of those rocks down there and you pass out and it can be over in a matter of seconds.
Regardless of the hazards, the effort continues.
Jonah seemed to indicate that there was some reef or something that it was on. Let's go and see if we see just any kind of reef at all, or has it all just been sand so far?
No, it's all sand.
Hey guys, I'm thinking what you ought to do is maybe start in on the beach and start running transects straight out from the beach, and that'll give us a better indication of where we are.
Roger that.
Brent and his crew's passion is turning to frustration.
I guess those things are probably buried in the sand. It's the only other explanation I can say. There ain't no reef exposed anywhere, is there?
No.
I think you're gonna waste time doing that. Look, we can't even find targets with the numbers on it.
I know Brent would love to find those cannons.
Believe me, I'd love to find the cannons.
So why
We
not
dig.
kill an hour?
Grab the coil, bro. Grab your coil and let's go.
All right.
It's gonna make you happy, let's do it.
Just 17 days after purchasing the salvage rights from the Fisher family, Brent found a relic of historical significance.
We find this bronze cannon. Laying below it, there are 22 gold coins. And that in and of itself was amazing. I had only been here a couple of months. I sat there and watched those gold coins come up out of the ocean in just complete awe. Little did we know that once we got back to our conservation lab, we started to remove the incrustation from the cannon and we could see the edges of more coins. It's kind of a treasure hunter's tale that's been passed down for years and years and years that, they used to smuggle treasure inside of cannons. We've heard it forever, but no one's ever proved that theory until this cannon came up and there was a bounty of gold and silver coins hidden inside it. So in the short time that we've been doing this, we've found some amazing artifacts. But when we find something significant and it makes national news, it reinforces my belief that, people are truly fascinated by the thought of finding lost treasure. And when they can see it for real and realize that it's happening, it really takes their breath away.
Uncovering the past and raising it from the ocean depths has become a passion of Brent's. To look out at the horizon and wonder what her water holds drives Brent to continue his efforts.
My father and I share a great reverence for the history of the 1715 fleet, and we view ourselves as custodians of that history. But the ultimate goal is to build a collection and share it with the world.
There's no doubt in my mind that we will find the Queen's jewels, and we will find the bottom of the Capitana ship that has 800,000 coins in it. So it's just a matter of time. It's not if, it's when.
Of all the riches and artifacts found, there is one treasure many still dream of finding.
Everyone is looking for the Queen's jewels.
While evidence of the Queen's jewels has yet to be found, many believe a dowry of 8 chests filled with precious stones, pearls, and jewelry was loaded onto the fleet for immediate return to Spain. 1715 brought many changes to Spain. The war had ended. Queen Philip's wife, Maria Luisa, died from tuberculosis. King Philip V, however, was quickly planning to remarry and was soliciting gifts for Elizabeth Farnese, Duchess of Palma.
She wanted a dowry that was to include one of the most prestigious set of jewels of any queen in Europe at the time.
Ironically, there is no record of the Queen's jewels on any of the manifests of the 11 ships. The Queen's jewels may have been stored in the captain's quarters of the Capitana, as many historians believe.
Did the Queen jewels really exist? I believe so.
We do know that the silver master on Eubia's Alamiranta saw the Queen's jewels loaded into the chest of clothes of the silver master on Eubia's Capitana. So we know they were in fact loaded. Most of the accounts and the documentation that we have are mostly pearls, a few emeralds, a few other things, certainly not anywhere near the entire dowry.
It had to be the Queen's jewels. It certainly had to be for somebody very important in the court.
Could the Queen's jewels be the reason why the Silver Fleet met its untimely demise?
There was a rumor that Philip V gave the order for the fleet to return because the Queen would not consummate her marriage unless she received the jewels.
Was it the impatience of King Philip V that prompted the fleet to sail at the worst time of year?
To sail in July, even at the end of July, was not unreasonable. I think this rumor is really more a modern rumor than an old rumor. I don't think it makes any sense, in my opinion.
Whether the fleet sailed at the height of hurricane season for economic aid or a king's impatience to marry, the Queen's jewels shared the same fate as the 11 ships that carried her.
Many people testified that there were chests of clothes and boxes floating all over the sea as far as the eye could see. Did the Queen's jewels float away? Are they still on the 1715 fleet? And it's another unknown mystery about the 1715 fleet.
If the Queen's jewels are indeed real, then they still lie guarded by the sand and sea somewhere off the coast of Florida, waiting to be uncovered. It's the end of day 2, and Brent has yet to find evidence of a 1715 shipwreck. To make matters worse, his divers found no sign of the rumored cannons they were searching for.
Yeah, man, I'm obviously disappointed that we couldn't find those cannons, and we spent the better part of a day out there looking for them, kind of all based on, an old ghost story, I think we put in a good faith effort, and we'll give it another shot in the morning.
With only a few legal targets left, Brent's chances of finding a shipwreck are dwindling. Morning, July 31st, 1715.
Those who survived the wrecking, those who were not seriously injured, were still facing enormous danger.
No one knew it at the time. But when all 11 ships went down, so did any hope of rescue. The survivors were stranded.
When the ships went down, a large portion of the hull was visible above the water. You would have seen a lot of debris that would have washed to the beach. You would have seen a lot of bodies. It was really a dire situation they were in.
For those who had battled the harsh beaches of Florida, it was easier finding gold and silver and treasure than basic necessities like food and water.
Many survivors had to do something to protect themselves from the heat, from the sun, and from mosquitoes.
By evening on the first day, the shipwrecked sailors were enduring the wrath of Florida's most savage creature.
I've heard that somebody was burying themselves, and men and women and children up to the neck to escape that. And we know that in those days there were a lot of mosquitoes carrying malaria.
Relief would not come until morning. Days passed and their situation was growing worse. At this time, no one knew what had happened to any of the other ships. A sailor from the southernmost ship walked up the beach to survey the fate of the other ships, and when he got to the northernmost shipwreck, he reported that none of the ships had survived intact. Eventually, the command system aboard the ships took over. They organized themselves and took stock of the supplies they could salvage. It was also imperative to create shelter from any wreckage they could find. As more of the treasure washed ashore, some of the survivors began storing it. Salvage camps were set up on the coast. A decision was soon made that word of the fleet's demise must be sent to Spain. 2 parties were dispatched, one to Havana, another to San Agustin, some 120 miles north up the coast of Florida. But word of the 11 Spanish treasure galleons filled with silver and shipwrecked off the coast quickly spread throughout the region. Spain would not be the only party interested in recovering the treasure.
The word was going around the Caribbean. People knew that this fleet was lost. People knew about where it was, and the salvage camps were attacked many times.
Upon arrival, the Spanish Navy rescued what remained of the survivors and began the salvage operation to reclaim what they could of the treasure. To this day, the loss of the 1715 Silver Fleet is one of the most tragic maritime disasters in world history. It's day 3 for Brent and his crew. This last dive is most important for finding evidence of the lost 1715 shipwreck. But Brent is nervous. After this dive site, he'll know definitely whether his expedition was worth the time and money.
Dad, I think if we set up right in that area, we'll be able to determine right away whether or not they're cannon or more of this modern debris we've been encountering.
I've been waiting for this spot all year.
Well, good, then you can dive today.
Normally at the helm, Tony is eager to get in the water and change this string of bad luck.
Tea? Little drop. It says BB size.
Jonah says I use too much spit.
Give me the...
A BB size drop.
Well, I don't know.
It says it right on the back of the bottle.
I can't read, you know I'm blind. I'm ready. Let's get this party going.
Okay, T-Bone, this is the last target that we're allowed to dig on in our permit, so let's make the best of it.
You see him use that spit for the mask? It's like...
He uses too much of everything. Laundry detergent, coffee, just piles it in.
Hey, open up my tank, please.
Yep.
Brent's first look at the site gives him a sickening feeling.
Yeah, there's stuff down there. Can't tell exactly what it is, but it's down there.
All Brent can see is modern wreckage.
Definitely ain't no cannons, boys.
While Bill and Tony scour the ocean's floor, Brent is convinced this has been a huge waste of time.
I'm just off that I've wasted a year looking for a wreck that's not here. I was really hopeful that these things were cannon, and they're not. It's garbage. It's, you know, modern reef, and you know, it's just it's a disappointing, agonizing feeling to know that I put all this time, all this effort, and certainly more than money into this, and you know, it's not looking good at this point, and I'm not happy about it.
Topside, Bill confirms Brent's fears.
Yep.
Yeah, there's nothing here, Brent. It's all like artificial reef, you know, man-made stuff, modern stuff.
More like what you saw yesterday?
Yeah, big concrete, telephone poles, stuff like that.
But still underwater, Tony has just made a major discovery. It's the final dive for Brent and his crew in this new spot where they are looking for the missing 1715 ships.
You know, I've always felt in my life that I was smart enough, and if I worked hard enough, I could persevere and accomplish any task. But out here, that's not necessarily the case. There's no rhyme or reason to the way these ships broke up. So it really just boils down to hard work. You've got to go out, move that sand away from the bottom of the ocean to see what's there.
Tony and Bill have scoured the ocean floor looking for any artifacts that could be from a 1715 shipwreck.
There's nothing here, Brent. It's all like artificial reef, you know, stuff like that.
Then out of the silence,
What you got, T?
Woo! Sword handle!
Oh, yeah! Look at that, man. That's a beauty.
Yeah!
Look at that, the blade coming out, the whole hilt, the handle, the knuckle guard. That's amazing.
It's amazing to be the first person to grab that artifact in 300 years.
That's in perfect condition. You can see the whole handle.
with this artifact in hand, it is clear to Brent they are on the trail of a 1715 shipwreck.
That's an amazing artifact. This is an excellent sign, man. Spanish shipwreck material.
It's nothing like bringing up treasure. Being underwater, finding something that's 300 years old, it's the best feeling in the world. Oh, man, that's nice. Man, that's 100% a sword handle, man.
Absolutely, man.
Get it tagged up, make it official.
That's the best find I've ever had.
The significance of this find is not lost on Brent. Still, there is more work to be done to prove these artifacts are from the missing 1715 ships.
300 years of history. It's been laying down there all this time, and it just came up, man. That is something else. When we started out on this journey, we were looking for evidence of one of the missing 1715 fleet ships. I think we found that.
Can't we just dig some more holes?
No, unfortunately, that's it. We're done.
How can you end it like that?
The state only allowed me 10 targets. We absolutely hit it.
You know, these artifacts and these coins and stuff have been just laying there for 300 years, and you're the first person to come along and pick it up. You know, that's an incredible feeling. You put that on electrolysis, that could clean up
Really nice.
almost like new.
This is the last hole that we dug. Unfortunately, it was the best hole that we dug, and I wish now that we could stay out here longer and just keep working through it.
Just think, Jonah, you're the first person to joust with that in 300 years.
I'll wear that on my chain from now on.
Who used all my spit?
It was Jonah. He told me to put it on.
That stuff's $10 a bottle. Thanks, dude.
I'm sorry, guys. Like you're baking a cake.
The whole endeavor of heading down to Jensen Beach was to try to prove that there's a lost shipwreck there. And the vast majority of the targets that we found had nothing to do with a Spanish shipwreck. But in and amongst that debris were the artifacts that Tony recovered, and that made the whole trip worthwhile.
For the crew of the Capitana, the Jensen Beach exploration would close the 2014 salvaging season. Only time will tell if Brent and his crew will one day have the opportunity to salvage this newly discovered wreck. 1 year later, after Brent and his crew found evidence of a 1715 shipwreck, they would make a major discovery. The historic find was all captured by a Japanese film crew.
July 31st of 2015 was not unlike any other day. We worked for about an hour. Bill said, I don't like it, it's dirty, things aren't going very well. And lo and behold, the next hole, the bottom was paved with gold.
Years to the day of the Spanish fleet's demise, the crew of the Capitana would uncover a find of great historical significance. 3 centuries in the making. Over 4 days of excavation, they would recover more than 350 gold coins, valued at $4.5 million.
Unbelievable.
It would be the single greatest recovery of Spanish treasure in the last 30 years.
To be sitting here 300 years later on July 31st, it was a magical experience for us. We found more treasure in that day that has been found in the last 30 years.
The centerpiece of the crew's discovery were 9 rare coins known as royals. These coins were minted specifically for King Philip V, and today, each royal is estimated to be worth $350,000.
These coins are perfect specimens, and they were made by royal order for the King of Spain.
Yeah! Woo! It's another royal.
It's another 11.
Prior to our finding of those 9 coins, there were only about 20 known to exist in the world. The most rewarding part of this find was to see the joy on my crew's faces. So when this $4.5 million finally came on the deck and they all realized that they're gonna walk away with a big pile of gold coins, the mood was ecstatic.
Can't pick a better spot.
The last 6 years of being a historic shipwreck salver has been an up and down experience for me. I've experienced great tragedy. I've lost 2 of my crew members to horrific, tragic early deaths at a young age, and that will never leave me. But for this to all happen on the anniversary, I can't say that it makes up for the loss of those individuals or any of those bad times, but it really certainly proved to me that perseverance pays off.
For 3 centuries, these waters have been slow to reveal the secrets of that fateful night. With this new find, the memory of the men and women who perished 300 years ago is kept alive. The legacy of this fleet and the promise of uncovering its hidden treasures will continue to inspire shipwreck salvers to embark on the search for the lost treasure fleet of 1715.
This special presentation has been brought to you by MineLab and Calico Metal Detectors, changing people's fortunes for over 60 years. Start your own adventure at calico.com.